Hey moms, it's Laura Ollinger. Welcome to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast.
So today, welcome. We have Heather Johnston, and I'm so excited to bring her on today. So Heather, say hello to our audience.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much, Laura.
Yay. Okay, so Heather and I have known each other for a very long time because her son and my oldest daughter are the same age in high school. So we've seen these kids go from little itty bitties all the way up to these big teenagers, and your son is really big now. He's like a huge, how tall is he?
It depends on the day you ask him what shoes he's wearing, but
well over 6 feet. He's a big kiddo, big, strong, healthy kiddo. So I'm so excited to bring Heather for you to come today to talk to our audience because a couple things. First of all, you've had a major career transformation. So I want to talk about that, and then we'll get into the rest of the mom stuff. So why don't you first tell us about what you do and why you do it?
Well, what I do right now is I'm a licensed professional counselor associate, supervised by Ream Glasgow. But that is a relatively recent change in my career, given my long span of my career. For many years, for almost 20 years, I was a practicing attorney, either in a law firm or in-house at a local Austin company, which actually is owned by the French. So it's an international company.
Oh, wow.
Worked there for many years, was in the executive realm. And one day in 2020, actually before the pandemic, I looked around and I thought, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? I had gone out to lunch with a colleague and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And we were the colleague and I were kind of complaining a little bit about the job. And his wife looked at me and she's like, well, you only have like another 20 years to work. And it was like an arrow to my heart. And I have to say, it really stuck with me and really got me thinking about what is it that I want to do for this second half of my career and what is important to me. And I look back over what I really enjoyed about being an attorney in a company is helping people find the best solutions for themselves, whether that's a salesperson, trying to close a deal, or one of my mentees or people who worked for me, or just friends in the space, and just having that connection with people and helping them discover what they need for themselves. And I was a psychology major in college and thought about going into that before I went to law school. And I worked with a bunch of lawyers before I went to law school. So I was like, oh, I'll be a lawyer. And I have loved it. I loved the practice of it, but I really wanted to do something more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you made this big transition. So how did you kind of figure out that that's what you wanted to do?
Well, what I did is I did a lot of soul searching. I thought I've always loved psychology, and my son, when he was almost 3.5, his dad and I got divorced. And so I spent a lot of time reading, like I'm sure like many of the moms out there are doing right, have done. I read every book, how to be a divorced family, how to co-parent, what do kids need, all the emotions. And I even bought that little emotions card for my son when he was like, not even 4. I'm like, what is this feeling? This is happy. And so I've really always incorporated a lot of that into my life. And so it just was sort of a natural transition of, well, I think I really want to do that. The actual, how do you make that happen? Are you sure that's what you want to do? It's not. I went on tons of interviews for other legal jobs and I was like, no, it's not what I want to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back to school and made it work. And when I quit my job, at the time I had a couple different people I reported to because we'd been acquired. And so there's a whole another level of, parent company that I dealt with. We're all very lovely. But each time everybody was like, you're so brave making a choice like this at your age. And I'm like, I'm not me. I feel like I got a few good years left.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was really telling of people's ideas of what life can be.
Yeah.
That looking at somebody who, I'm not 20, but I'm certainly not 105.
Right.
What life can be, that you have choices and that you can make choices and continue to evolve. And I thought that was really telling.
Yeah, I agree. And you're such a great example of that, how moms can decide that, certain things do need to change, whether they're, going in the workforce, out of the workforce, changing, what that looks like for them. I think that that's incredibly just you're a great example of that. And I have to say that's what I did as well. So, I went back and got my master's degree in my 40s. I never thought I would be back in school, just like you. You think once you're done, with undergrad that you're not going to do that again or whatever, you finish up in your younger years. So I just think that's awesome, just to inspire moms that they can, decide right now, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to change. I'm going to go back and educate myself or research or whatever, kind of calls to me, just like you explained.
Yeah. And life doesn't have to be a set pattern. I think sometimes people forget that because there's this overwhelming push to know what you're supposed to do. And you're supposed to have a career and a vision and a 5-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
Life can be a lot more flexible. And if you're willing just to accept that, it's a little uncertain, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I just love that way of thinking, that flexible kind of mindset, because, so many other options can be open if you're just kind of aware that that's even a thing. And so how do you think, how did your son, what did he think of this? What did your husband think of this? How did they react to that?
I have to say I was very fortunate. So I was a working mom. My son's dad and I, we got divorced. Very good co-parenting situation. I couldn't ask for anybody better, honestly. And so I was a single working mom for a number of years, and then I got remarried and then had a whole blended family thing. So I kind of feel like I've gone through the whole journey. So I was very lucky in the sense that my now husband was really supportive. He was like, if this is what you want to do, and this is something that's really important to you, we'll make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And my son he was like, okay, mom, whatever. I think what he really enjoyed was I was around more. Even though I was in school, I was physically around more than I was when I was working full time. So that's been that was sort of an added blessing to the experience. Having those few years where I had just a lot more time to navigate in the spaces, not just, before work and after work.
Right. Yeah. It kind of changed how the day would go on a daily basis, that relationship. And so what I'm thinking of as I'm imagining, what it was like to be you and in your family, that's going to be something really cool for your son when, obviously he's a teenager now, and he only cares so much about what you do on a daily basis, right? Teenagers are all about themselves. They just care about themselves. And I'm sure he's very proud of you, very happy for you. But I think what's going to hit him even more is when he's older, when he's an adult. He's going to say, oh, my mom changed careers. My mom went back to school. My mom pursued her passion. And how, you must be so proud to set that example for him.
I hope that's the example. And I think it's one thing for somebody to tell you. It's another thing to watch somebody do it and be like, oh, it's okay. It's doable. Right. Yeah. And I think that's, my son is an only child. So you have your daughter who's older, the oldest, but you have younger ones too. So they kind of get to watch life through watching her, and they know it's going to be okay. And so where the oldest one, you're like, just trust me, it'll be fine.
They don't have any basis to measure things off of. It's just, it is what it is. So
that's a nice thing to see. Not only that, hey, somebody gave lip service to it, but I see it can be done and it's doable. And And it's, it's like anything else. It takes planning, it takes thought, it takes compromise. But if that's really what you want to do and you make it work. My son is funny though, because he is a teenager, and you work with teenagers, so So I've been his entire life been talking to him about feelings, always. And as soon as I started school, he's like, I'm watching you. I know you're therapizing me. I'm like, no, I'm not. I promise. I've been doing this forever.
Right. Just we've always done this. This is not.
We've always done this. This isn't some magic ninja work.
Right. I have a similar experience where I too had always talked about feelings with my kids. And ever since I became a coach, initially, I thought, oh gosh, I need to be careful that I don't coach them, because I still want to be their mom. Like, I'm their mom. That's my job. It's not my job to coach them. People from the outside world hire me to be their coach. And so I was really careful with that in the beginning. And what I realized that, it's so kind of ingrained in me subconsciously that there are probably ways I'm coaching my kids, and they don't know it. I don't know it, because it just kind of becomes part of who you are. You don't even really think about it anymore. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Entirely different mindset.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm super curious to talk to you and kind of share with moms, think about our audience here. We have a very large, very diverse audience. And there might be some moms in here who have never gone to speak with and do you call yourself a therapist or a counselor?
Yeah, a therapist.
Therapist.
Counselor, you can choose.
Okay. Sometimes I like to be sure I have the right term. So, for those moms who have never gone to a therapist, what do you feel like would be helpful for them to know? You know, as moms, we all have some very common bonds, whether we have babies or whether we have college kids or high schoolers, whatever the age is, and, you know, even beyond, you might have adult kids. There is kind of a similar thread that we all experience where we want to do the best that we can. We may be working out of the home, we may not. But either way, we kind of come across struggles, whether it's stress, anxiety, overwhelm, not feeling confident, or kind of lacking some self-worth. Like where do you feel like you contribute most to the clients that come see you?
I think it's giving people a space that is outside of their life to share what they really need and think and feel and want. There's a mental health aspect, like you mentioned, you're struggling with anxiety or depression, or you had a big life event like a death or a divorce or marriage or school or whatever it is, and you're having struggles, and you want to process through all of that. Mm-hmm. Those are all things that are clinical and you do with a therapist. Mm-hmm. But I think what is the added value, especially for moms, is that as a mom, you're so used to being the person who everybody comes to, like fix my problem, make my appointments, sort of. I mean, every single year there's a new article out there about how moms manage so much that emotional load of the family. Mm-hmm. And we're always putting ourselves at the bottom of the list. Mm-hmm. And so mental health is so important for parents. And we can talk about that in a few minutes, but having somebody you can go to where they don't have a stake in your life, they only have care for you. It's huge, because you can imagine you talk to a best friend about something and they remember it even after you've gotten over it. You talk to your mom about something your husband did that pissed you off or upset you. You might get past it. They remember. And so, and there's people in your life, like obviously you don't want to make your children your counselors. So, especially if you're a single mom or don't have kind of partner support, you need a place to go where you can truly be heard and valued for who you are. And I think that's one of the big benefits that therapy provides, in addition to the sort of the clinical aspect of, hey, we've identified you have some anxiety. Here's how it's showing up in your life. Here's some skills and tools we can work on, that kind of stuff. I think as a mom, it's especially helpful to have that place where you can go and you are the primary.
I think that's such a great point and so beautifully said, because it is very true that we as moms are, the emotional caretakers of the home. I think in another show, I said the emotional mothership. I don't know where I came up with that, but it just made sense. And it's so true, because we hold all this space for everyone around us, but yet we need someone to hold space for ourselves. That you're right. That's not somebody that's in our, invested daily lives where the result will somehow impact them, but someone that's just, non-biased, non-judgmental, just a safe place for them to go and kind of just process all, like you said, their thoughts and their feelings and things like that. So what are you kind of most proud of as far as, the transformation that you see your clients making when you work with them?
I think when I'm most excited, I'm not necessarily say proud, but excited. Like I'm very invested in my clients. Like I have extraordinary empathy and care, and every single one of them is special to me. And so when I see somebody make a breakthrough, something that's been holding them back in the past, or a negative thought pattern that they've been holding on to, or the shoulds, I should be like this, I should be like that, and transforming through that to see themselves in probably the way that most people in their lives see them, without that judgment, without that negativity, without all of that holding them back. It's fun. It's like watching a bird fly. You're like, you finally see it. You see what we see.
Right.
And I think that's, for me, the most rewarding part is when you have somebody who has one of those moments, those, what we call them in therapy, is aha moments. And you're just like, yes.
I can see, that's what happens with my clients when they hit a new, threshold or something that they've been working on and they finally do it. I get so proud of them. I'm so excited. So I share that sentiment with you. And so what would be your advice to moms who are unsure? Like maybe they're just not feeling, on top of the world. Maybe they're just kind of have the blahs or the blues or whatever. Like they kind of, how moms go through what I call Groundhog Day, where it's like, okay, we're making lunches again. We're driving carpool again. We're doing this again. And they're just feeling blah. but yet they don't like have a triggering event, like you said, a divorce or maybe a loss of a loved one, something like that would a lot of times cause someone to find a therapist. What would your advice be if they're just feeling blah? Like, how would they kind of take that next step as far as like reaching out to a therapist, or even, having to probably get their spouse's support? Like, hey, I'd like to go do this. Usually a lot of times that's kind of a joint decision, because it can be an investment if they don't have the right insurance or whatever that might be. Not all, so how would you kind of give that encouragement to say, anybody who's listening today, say, you know what, you deserve to advocate for yourself? Like, what would that look like for you?
I think a lot of times when people hear therapist, they think I have to have something that's diagnosable. Like I have to have an anxiety disorder. I have to be severely depressed, not getting out of bed. Whereas we can always have elements of issues, sort of like you said, the blah, sort of not feeling really motivated. That's sort of a depressive-like symptom, but you're not diagnosable. But that doesn't mean that there isn't something where you need additional support. And I think the most recent statistics are in this kind of parent age range of the 26 to 49. In a given year, 1 in 4 people will have a mental health concern. So you are in good company. If you're feeling blah, you're feeling something just isn't right, you don't know what it is, but just something just isn't fitting or just feels, ugh, seek help, talk to somebody. There's no downside. I think in a lot of it is like, when you reach out to somebody, there's no downside for support. We always encourage people to find support. Some people find it in their church community, some with their moms, like, moms groups, family, friends. Therapy is just an extension of that idea of getting support. And it's a support in kind of a safe, different way, especially if you don't know what's going on. Having somebody who's trained to kind of work with you to uncover it together also be extremely helpful, because I might hear something in what you're saying that you're not hearing.
Right.
And I can say, hey, this is what I'm hearing. And you're like, okay, that resonates. Like, I feel that. In terms of finding support with a partner, depending on the finances, like you said, insurances can be really difficult and tricky to navigate on both sides, for therapists and for people who are seeking services. It's an investment in you and your family. And I think this is one of the big things for me, is having parents and moms especially invest in their mental health is only a benefit to the overall family. So, talking to your spouse about, or your partner about, hey, I really think I want to go see somebody, this is sort of what's going on with me. Getting help for yourself, even if you're not sure what it is good for the entire family. So could you imagine a situation where you're kind of feeling the blahs, you're just, things aren't as interesting anymore, you don't really know what to do. You might get more irritable. You might get more frustrated with your kids easily. They ask a question that you, like you said, Groundhog Day for the 47th time, where are my soccer cleats? Where your soccer, and you find yourself getting like angrier, or your responses aren't the type that you would want to give for your child. Sort of a lot of the positive parenting that you share on your through your work and on your socials, etc. Those get cut into, even if you're just struggling with something and you're not all the way to like a severe mental illness where you can't get out of bed and there may be an issue of neglect, right? Like even before you get all the way down the line, there are still impacts that you're having on your family that you might not even be aware of. So I think when you go to speak with a partner, it's not just about yourself, it's about how you're showing up in the family. And so it's a benefit for everyone, for you to be able to at least identify. And the worst thing that could happen, honestly, is you go a couple of times, you figure out, this is what's going on, or actually I'm better than I thought. Problem solved. It's not like there's a commitment. You don't have to sign anything. The therapist is there for your best interest, not their own. So
I think that's a great point, because there are, and there always is the kind of mental health stigma of, if I go, then it's going to mean this, whatever that means. Everybody has their own meaning of what it means, right?
Yep.
But really, just like if you see it as an investment in yourself and your family, I love that part of it, because I hadn't really thought of that like, because the mom is that emotional mothership, that how she's feeling is going to affect the whole family and her parenting skills for sure. Yeah.
And it's, you can imagine a kid who's just like, I just asked where my cleats were, mom. Like, they don't understand. They don't have context for adult emotions. And so I think in finding a therapist, the most important thing that the literature has shown is that it's not so much the theory that your therapist applies. They should be applying some sort of theory, grounded theory. But it's really the connection that you have with that therapist. So when you're searching for somebody, you should be, and you talk to people, if you don't kind of have a warm feeling of feeling like this fits, this person gets me, then that's probably not the person for you. And that's something that's really important to know too, is that the connection that you have is really one of the main things that drives good outcomes.
Oh, that's interesting. I had not heard that before, because you think of it as, if you're going to an eye doctor, that, as long as they're checking my eyes, then it doesn't matter who I go to. It's just, but whereas the therapist is a more personalized experience, and you do want to make sure you have that kind of really close connection, or not close connection, but kind of some that this person resonates with you somehow.
Yeah. And some people are like, oh, I do CBT, which is cognitive behavioral, which is how your thoughts affect your behaviors and your emotions, and all kind of goes together. And then you have people who are like, my theory is that everybody tells themselves stories, and if there's a problem, it's a problem narrative. Like, all that's important to know, that your therapist has some sort of theory that they apply that has, grounding in something, but it's that connection that's the differentiating factor.
Okay. That's really good to know. I had not heard of that or thought about that before.
I'm going to pause this conversation with Heather. If you'd like to hear more, listen to my next episode of The Positively Healthy Mom. Thank you for listening to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast, because there's no manual for the hardest job in the world. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends.